Hello everybody, this is Jonathan, and today we are working on some ACT practice math problems near the middle of the test, almost to the end, number 37 here. That means kind of intermediate, a little difficult questions. And let's go ahead and start. The bottom of the basket of a hot air balloon is parallel to the level ground. One taut tether line, 144 feet long, is attached to the center of the bottom of the basket and is anchored to the ground at an angle of 72 degrees, as shown in the figure below. Which of the following expressions gives the distance in feet from the center of the bottom of the basket to the ground? So what we're looking for is x, that's half the battle. Does that make sense? With the following expression, from the center of the basket to the ground, that's what we're looking for. And we need to find an expression for x, given what we have. So all you really need to do is remember SOHCAHTOA, right? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tan is opposite over adjacent. So what we're given here is we have this angle here, and we have this is the adjacent side and this is the opposite side. So we have the opposite side, so that's good, and we have the hypotenuse. So when we're looking at SOHCAHTOA, we know that sine is what we're looking for, because sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and we have both of those. So in this case, sine of 72 equals the opposite x over the hypotenuse 144. And then if we simplify this by multiplying by 144 on both sides, we get these cancel out, and x equals 144 times sine of 72. And that is one of our answers, E. Perfect. Let's move on to the next one. The coordinates of the endpoints of GH in the standard xy coordinate plane are -8, -3, and 2, 3. What is the x-coordinate of the midpoint, the x-coordinate of the midpoint of GH? So we can draw a little graph to see what we're dealing with here, and just a rough sketch is all you need. We don't want to waste too much time. So -8, -3, it's negative over a lot and negative down just a little bit, right about there. -8, -3, and 2, 3, over a little bit, up a little bit, right about there. 2, 3. And there's a line between them, and we're looking for the midpoint. Visually, it's looking like it'll be on the x-axis. That doesn't necessarily mean it is. And it isn't even really relevant to what we're looking for, because we're just looking for the x-coordinate. But anyways, the midpoint of 2 points is an xy, right? And this coordinate, x, is the average of the 2 x-coordinates from your endpoints, and this coordinate is the average of the 2 y components of your endpoints. And really all that means is you're looking at the x-coordinates from here to here, and you're looking at what comes in between, right in the middle. And you're doing the same for the vertical. You're looking right in the middle, right? And that will give you this point. So all we're looking for is the x-coordinate, which will be right in between -8 and 2. And so the way we find that is the average between the two. 2 plus -8 all over 2, because we're looking at 2 points here. And that equals -6 over 2, and that equals -3. And for something like this, if you're having trouble remembering that the average is the midpoint, just draw your line here. You're going from -8 to 2, -8, -7, -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, oh, 2. There's a little bit of a big jump there at the end, but that's fine. And so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 hops, and then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's also 5 hops. So you know -3 is in the middle. So you can do little stuff like that if you forget some of the math behind it, and get an answer still. Let's move on to the next one. This is a very algebraic one. Alright. Let 2x plus 3y equals 4 and 5x plus 6y equals 7. What is the value of 8x plus 9y? So we're given a system of 2 equations and 2 variables. So that means we should be able to figure out what x and y are. And the best way to look at these two things is to combine them in some way so that one of the variables cancels out. Now, something that pops out at me immediately is the 3 and the 6 here. Since 3 times 2 is 6, we should be able to figure out how to cancel those out. Let me just rewrite what we have. 2x plus 3y equals 4, and 5x plus 6y equals 7. So again, we said 3 times 2 is 6, so let's try and multiply this whole thing by 2, if that makes sense. I'm just separating the two. Alright, now we multiply throughout the whole equation, and we get 2 times 2 is 4x, plus 2 times 3 is 6y, equals 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, and now we look at these two equations and see that, these might be able to cancel out, which is really good. So we take 5x plus 6y equals 7, and we should subtract this whole equation from it. So we get 5x plus 6y equals 7 minus the whole equation, 4x plus 6y equals 8. And you do this really like any other subtraction of numbers. 5x minus 4x equals just 1x. 6y minus 6y equals 0y. And 7 minus 8 equals -1. So that isn't anything, and that's just x, so x equals -1. So that's good. Now all we need to do is plug back in to one of our original equations. Let's just do this one. Doesn't really matter which one you choose. And we have 2 times -1. You plug -1 in for x. Plus 3y equals 4. Simplify a little bit. -2 plus 3y equals 4. Add 2 to both sides. These cancel. 3y equals 4 plus 2 is 6. And then we divide by 3 on both sides. And those cancel, and we get y equals 2. Perfect. So we have x equals -1 and y equals 2. And now we just need to figure out what the question was asking to begin with. What is the value of 8x plus 9y? And so we plug those numbers back into our original question. X equals -1, so 8 times -1 plus 9 times y equals 2. What does that equal? Well, that just equals -8 plus 9 times 2 is 18, which equals 10. 18 minus 8 is 10. And let's check if that's an answer. And it is. Answer E. Perfect. Now let's look at the next one. What are the values of theta between 0 and 2 pi when tangent of theta is -1? This sounds like a unit circle problem, and the unit circle definitely helps, and you should do everything to learn the unit circle. Very helpful in many math classes. So, if tan of theta equals -1, right? Let's just look at a triangle. Tan of theta, remember, tan equals opposite over adjacent, right? And so if we're looking at this angle, it's this side over this side, right? Opposite over adjacent. And if tan equals -1, that means opposite and adjacent are the same values, except one is negative and one is positive, right? 5 divided by -5 is -1. 27 divided by -27 is also -1. So what we're looking for here is triangles with the same length sides, right? And so we find that there, and there, like that, right? And from the unit circle, we know that this angle is pi over 4. This one is 3 pi over 4. This one is 5 pi over 4. And this one is 7 pi over 4. Now, we know that they are the same distances, the opposite and the adjacent, for all of these, right? But we need to know whether or not tangent of each of these angles is +1 or -1. So here we have a positive value plus a positive value, so that's going to be +1. Tan of this equals +1. Here we have a negative and a positive, so we're going to get -1. Tan of this equals -1. And for this we have a negative and a negative. And so tan is going to be positive. Tan of this is going to be +1. And for this one we have a positive and a negative. Right? We're going right on the x-axis, down on the y-axis. Positive, negative. Tan of this equals -1. And so this is what we're looking for, the negative ones. 3 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4. And that is one of our answer choices. 3 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4 only.